and welcome to Look Who's Talking. I'm your host, Carol Dioria. This is a podcast with people who help change Long Island, make it better for those of us who live here. And one of those people is Rodney Harrison. He's the Suffolk County Police Commissioner and my guest today. Welcome. And you have quite a history. Before you even got here, you had a whole career in the NYPD, reaching Chief of Department. Some people would have called it a day and said, I think I'll retire.
Yeah.
And you kept going and became the first black police commissioner in Suffolk County.
That's correct.
The two places are different. Tell me how it feels.
Yeah. So first and foremost, Carol, thank you so much for having me on your show. And yes, it does feel different. Doing 30 years in NYPD, it was a great journey. Going from police officer up to overseeing 35,000 people. It was a nice run, and I will say this: the NYPD made me the man who I am today. So I'm always grateful for the men and women that still work out there. I actually have two daughters that are now New York City police officers.
You must be very proud of them.
I'm very, very proud of them. They're doing a great job. But after a while, it was time to take a look and see what else is out there that I could take on as a challenge. And at the end of 2020, there was an opening in Suffolk County. I threw my hat in the ring. I went through a whole process, and I was eventually confirmed by the legislators and given the opportunity to be the police commissioner of Suffolk County.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And you have the ability as the #1 top cop to really affect change.
Change is important. Not to say that the Suffolk County Police Department needs change, but always, any organization can always take a look at themselves inside and see what we could do better. And I think that was something that I wanted to do when I first got sworn in, take a look at some of the things that within this department that we can all say as a whole, as an organization, hey, we could do a little bit better in this department.
Right, tweak this and tweak that.
That's correct.
Okay, so there are a lot of big cases out here, and one of them is the Gilgo Beach case. You got right on that when you started. So a lot of women lost their lives, the bodies were found over a period of time, and it hasn't been solved. So can you give us a status report? The FBI is still on this, but you really made this a priority.
I did, and there were a couple parts of the investigation that I wanted to take a closer look at and see what is it that we're doing, and why is it taking so long to get to identifying who a subject is. So the most important thing, this is something I learned from Jimmy O'Neill in the police department in NYPD, is who are our partners out here, and how can we bring everybody to the table and put together a task force. And that was the first thing that I wanted to do. So I reached out to the FBI, state police, made sure that the district attorney's office had somebody in the room, reached out to the sheriffs and the FBI, and we put everybody together and asked them to say, listen, this is going to be a task force, everybody working together, leaving our egos at the door and trying to figure out what's the best way of identifying a subject. And I think it was very helpful in getting the ball rolling and making sure all investigative steps are being covered going forward. And a lot of good work is being done, and some more work still needs to be done. But I will say this: we're in a better place prior to me coming into this position.
And some of the tapes, the audio tapes that are part of the evidence in the case, you were able to release those so that people could hear it. It makes people feel like they're part of the process, and that, oh, okay, they have that.
Yeah, I was puzzled. I was wondering why we weren't being transparent. You're talking about the Shannon Gilbert 911 calls that I released, and we did a nice little press conference regarding what we believe was the conclusion of that investigation. But the reluctancy of us playing the 911 tapes, I couldn't understand it. And I, once again, brought everybody in the room and tried to ask everybody their opinions regarding, well, why can't we release it? And nobody could give me really a solid answer. So I said, well, listen, during my time frame as police commissioner, one of the things that we're going to do and be a little bit better at, like I stated before, be transparent, and that was one of the first things I did coming out the gate.
So, is this a solvable case? I mean, there are a lot of different parts to it. I mean, do you think the day will come where you'll be able to arrest somebody?
I think we're in a good place. I think as long as I have partners like Ray Tierney, who is our district attorney, partners like Dr. Earl Toulon, and a host of other, the sheriffs. I think as long as they're willing to partner with me, which they have been, and as well as, once again, as our state police and the FBI, I strongly believe that we're going to make headway in regards to identifying the subject and holding them accountable.
Yeah, well, you have more heads working on the same problem.
That's right, that's right.
Very good.
And then I think that was one of the problems that was faced with this investigation, is we were trying to do it by ourselves. Now we're working with everybody out
Right,
here.
right. Well, I know you said you don't get much sleep, that you worry about a lot of things.
I do.
So I guess this is one of them, because you just launched right into it.
Yeah. I've been in a place that I haven't slept a lot, especially overseeing the NYPD during my time frame as a chief detective during the pandemic, as well as the protests, the law enforcement protests that really hurt the country, and as well as my time frame as chief patrol. I've been working a lot of late nights, long weeks, but I'm up to the challenge, and my family's been very supportive, and we're getting the job done.
Yeah, you're a police family.
We are. My wife actually is also a retired
Right.
lieutenant who I met in the academy, and 30 years later, or 31 years later, 3 kids and a house. We're doing pretty good.
Wow. And you have such a big responsibility, preserving the rights of the people, keeping your police officers safe, and it is possible to do both, right?
It is, but I will say this: we can't protect a county or a city if the police officers are not able to protect themselves, and that's one of the things that I prioritized when I was given an opportunity to be the police commissioner. Take a look at certain things that we do within this department, and make sure that the cops have the appropriate equipment and logistics to protect themselves. And when they're able to take care of themselves, then guess what? They can protect the county.
Sure, and you feel safe. And
Correct.
you made things like you put the partitions in the car.
That's correct. I was very uncomfortable the way we transported prisoners. We
They were
transported
sitting in
prisoners.
the front
They're
seat.
sitting in the front seat. I heard that, and I said, listen, we gotta figure out a different way to do that. Some of the radios didn't work in certain areas, so we upgraded our radios. A couple other procedures and protocols that I just kind of tweaked and say, hey, listen, we're going to do this a little bit differently. Be it single-man cars in areas that were somewhat dangerous and uncomfortable to respond to certain calls to. So I doubled up a couple of cars. These are the things that are important to me, is making sure I protect the cops, because that's one of the main reasons why I struggle with sleep, is making sure my cops are able to go home at the end of the day.
Sure. They have families of their own.
They have the families of their own, that's correct.
Right. So you also have a reform plan that the Justice Department came up with in 2013, I think it is. 1,000 pages, and you still have to abide by that, right?
That's correct.
So what kinds of things, my understanding is it was making police officers accountable,
Yep.
and making sure that integrity is a top priority. Can you talk about that?
Sure, and I did a little time as an executive in internal affairs, so in order for us to build trust, there has to be accountability. So I did take a look at our internal affairs and make sure they had the appropriate amount of personnel and anything that they needed in order for them to conduct internal investigations. But the one thing about the reform plan that I thought was extremely imperative was implementation of the body-worn cameras. We were able to complete all of our patrol cops or police officers about 2 months ago, where all of our patrol cops are wearing body-worn cameras, and that's a big way of implementing transparency, making sure that we are able to video certain incidents when we come across a certain call or car stop or whatever the case may be, and make sure we share the videos with whoever asks about it. And I think that's a good step regarding reform, making sure that we are accountable by sharing videos of our engagements with community people that sometimes may not necessarily be in the appropriate way of policing sometimes.
Sure, sure. Let people see what they're doing, that there
Correct.
are no secrets,
Correct.
that they're following protocol, and they get to see the danger the police officers are in.
Correct. But it also has turned into a place where officers that were reluctant to wear it are very happy to wear it now because it shows the true story. And so instead of people making allegations and making some type of complaint against a police officer, the way now is the body-worn camera is telling the true story, and I think that's important for why there's a need for all officers to wear body-worn cameras.
So there was a little bit of a culture change.
It was, and that's how life is with anything in life. You know, nobody likes change, but once they see the positives that can come from it, I think it's really has changed a major dynamic in the Suffolk County Police Department.
And what kind of various groups, what are they saying about the differences that they see?
So they see a lot more positive engagements, you know, because the officers are now having to wear and activate the body-worn cameras, and that level of professionalism is definitely being exposed. But yet at the same time, people who are making complaints against cops, and we're able to show the body-worn camera, it shows the true story, and see how sometimes there are people out there that agitate and try to get our cops to do something that will get them to possibly do some type of misconduct, which is great because I'm so impressed with the restraint of the men and women of the Suffolk County Police Department.
It's very hard when you're being poked.
Antagonized.
Antagonized is a better word, right.
That's right.
Right. So you have to find a way to be pro-police and pro-community. You have to blend the two, it seems.
Yeah, so I've always been a big fan of community engagement. There's so many positives that come out regarding building that trust. Everything from just getting people to understand what we do for a living and the dangers that come with it, to the judicial part where a juror who's going to make the ultimate decision regarding somebody that we place under arrest and are holding them accountable regarding are they going to believe that cop that's testifying. So having that community trust and having that community engagement, there's a lot of layers of positivity that come from that, and it's worked out very well with the implementation of the reform plan regarding me creating community ambassadors, making sure that we're taking a look at cops that do perform some type of misconduct or held accountable. These are layers of trust that help a department go forward into protecting the county.
For so long, you had the headlines of Chief Burke, and they kept repeating over and over again how he beat somebody up, which he did. He went to jail for, as he should. So you really, it's a big effort to move away from that notion that the police will do whatever they need to do.
Well, I will say this. I want to thank my predecessors. I could talk about Tim Sini. I could talk about Jerry Hart and the work and the grind that they did regarding building a relationship. You know, Tim Sini was very instrumental in how we addressed the MS-13 gang problem. You know, Jerry Hart, you know, had that FBI background and her role in regards to fighting crime. So they had a big part in setting me up on the stage to succeed, and I just kind of ran with the ball and made sure things that they had implemented are still in place. But yet at the same time, make sure a couple other things that we could do a little bit better, that we could tweak, and make sure that we go forward and have these types of ways of protocols and procedures in place to, once again, it's make us, I believe, one of the better police departments in the country.
Make you shine.
Make me shine. Make us shine.
Right. So we have a lot more things to talk about, but we want to just take a break right now. Welcome back. You are watching and listening to Look Who's Talking, and I'm your host, Carol Dioria. And with me today, my guest is the Suffolk County Police Commissioner, Rodney Harrison. And one of the things we wanted to talk about is, well, you've made lots of changes, and one of them is you working harder to recruit minority members. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so, when I first came into this position, I was looking at the diversity within this police department, and it wasn't at a place where I liked or like what I saw.
Should we tell people what the numbers
Yeah,
were?
yeah, no, I'm going to share it with you. 2% out of 2,500 were black, and I think we could do better. And that 2% is 63, by the way.
63 officers out of 2,500.
Out of 2,500, that's correct. So I took a look at my team and I said, what can we do better? Like, what is it that we're doing wrong? What are we doing regarding outreach? And we recently had a test in June, and we had a nice core of people from brown and black communities came out and filed, but I really took a lot of the ownership on myself and went to so many of the different schools and talked about the potential of coming to law enforcement, the potential of taking the tests and joining what I call a noble profession. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the Suffolk County Police Department. It could be any law enforcement agency. Hey, listen, Suffolk County Police Department is a great job. It's a well-paying job, but the men and women of this department are absolutely incredible. And it's something that I wanted to make sure that during my crusade of going out and talking, made sure that I really tapped into a lot of the brown and black students from the different communities and make sure, hey, listen, I came up in a place where I never wanted to become a cop. I had negative interactions with law enforcement growing up in Queens. And for me to be able to rise up through the NYPD and now be the police commissioner of Suffolk County, I'm the poster child. And if I could do it, you can as well. And I received a lot of positive feedback from teachers and faculty, but as well as the students. I'm a big fan of always giving out my number. And if you ever have any questions, give me a call. And I think it's really changing or turning the tide regarding people from the different communities, the minority communities, taking a closer look and becoming a Suffolk County police officer.
Well, I see an example, a living example of what can be done.
That's correct. And once again, it's this, you hear my story and my negative experiences, and now me having two daughters that are in this line of work, and me having an opportunity and being blessed to become the police commissioner of the Suffolk County Police Department, I have a story to share. And I think it's important that I go into the school, go into the roots of the youth, and talk about this is something that you may want to consider when you get to that age.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me about what a community ambassador is?
Yeah.
That's something you started.
Yeah. So this is something that we put together in NYPD. I want to make it seem like I created a new wheel here. Was called sector presidents in the city, where in a NYPD precinct, there's probably about before neighborhood police, and probably about 10 sectors. In each sector, we identified one community person that was a stakeholder and had a certain amount of constituents that can share issues or concerns and make sure that they brought it to the precinct commander's attention, as well as I could talk to them about things that we're doing differently within our department. So I took that concept and brought it out here, where we have 7 precincts. Each precinct, we identified 4 to 5 members that are really major or big people within their communities. It could be a religious leader, it could be a business owner, it could be somebody who's working with the Department of Education, and say, hey, listen, tag your writ. You're going to be one of my ambassadors, and we're going to have weekly calls regarding things that are going on within your community, as well as you're going to bring information to my attention as well, be it quality of life concerns, hey, listen, crime issues that maybe be going on. I need to hear what the streets are talking about as well, and then I would get that information to make sure that we're addressing it going into the future. It's something that
street.
Was that it's a two-way street, absolutely. Recently we had a shooting incident where my officers had to engage somebody that had a firearm. This individual shot at my police officers. My officers shot
This
back
is the case in the
in
first
North
precinct?
Amityville. That's correct. And I got on on a Zoom call right away with my community ambassadors to make sure that they knew exactly what would happen here, so nobody else takes advantage of the opportunity and make it seem like it was a negative shooting incident. It was a positive. The individual had a firearm. He shot at the police officers, and my officers did a really, really heroic job stopping the threat.
And again, they had body cameras.
They had body-worn cameras that we were able to see the whole encounter, the whole chase, how they asked him to stop, asking him to put the gun down, or demanding him to put the gun down, excuse me, and how he pointed the gun at the police officers. And that's why I'm a big fan of the implementation of the body-worn cameras for our police officers.
You get the narrative out before somebody else with an agenda
1,000%.
has a story they want to make up.
People always want to stand on a soapbox and twist the narrative and say, oh, well, he didn't have a gun, or the officers shot him in the back, or he was running away. Absolutely not. I got on the Zoom meeting right away with my community ambassadors, and they reached out to their constituents just in case if anybody had any questions. And that's how you build trust in communities.
One of the other problems, unfortunately, is drugs.
Yeah.
We touched a little bit about gangs earlier, but drugs right in the schools, right in the neighborhoods where kids are living, that's a tough one, isn't it?
You know, we've seen too many overdoses out here in Suffolk County. This is something that I would say the last couple of years has turned into like a major problem, and it's affecting our youth. It's going into our schools, like you stated. And the way to stop this from happening is make sure we have the right investigators and going after those individuals that are selling the fentanyl and packaging it in with some of our controlled substance, be it heroin or cocaine or whatever else it may be. And it's tough, but a lot of great work is being done. I gotta give a shout out to one of my detective lieutenants, Mike Perone, that oversees my narcotics teams. The investigating the non-fatal overdoses, and then my other detective lieutenant, Kevin Byer, he's partnering up with Mike Perone regarding overdoses that are fatal. So between those two,
He's the homicide.
He's a homicide lieutenant, detective lieutenant. So between those two investigators, working side by side, making sure we identify the individuals that put that drug in the wrong person's hands that caused them to have an overdose, be it non-fatal or fatal. We've done a lot of great work, and we've identified a lot of criminal enterprises. We've done a lot of search warrants, taking down some of these drug dealers that are unfortunately poisoning a lot of our communities.
And so that leads us right to Crime Stoppers, really. If somebody has information, they can always call anonymously, right?
So yeah, I'm a big fan of Crime Stoppers. When I was a chief of detectives, I oversaw Crime Stoppers in the city. We solved so many cases because of Crime Stoppers, letting people know you can remain anonymous, but yet at the same time be compensated. Our Crime Stoppers hotline, I want to make sure I get this out now before so I don't forget, 1-800-220-TIPS. But it's great because it gives people an opportunity to call up with any information that they may know about an overdose or somebody that might have did a shooting, a robbery, a burglary, and we are always getting that information out. Hey, if you know the perpetrator that committed this crime, hey, here goes a picture of somebody that's still in catalytic converters. Hey, somebody's over here selling drugs. If you have any information, you can call Crime Stoppers and remain anonymous, and we've seen a lot of positive results. I do want to give my condolences to the Nick Amir family. He unfortunately passed away a couple of days ago. He was the president of the Crime Stoppers program. Really great man, great supporter of law enforcement, and I'm going to miss his partnership. But the services are today, and I believe the funeral services are tomorrow.
Well, you have a very big job, and it sounds like you really dove right in, and that you're doing a good job.
I appreciate that.
And
Thanks, Karen.
we want to thank you for doing that, because it means a lot to people who live here every day. You know, whether it's Nassau or Suffolk, you know, the roads go both ways.
Mhm.
And so we really want to thank you for your effort and invite you back anytime you want to talk to us about what's happening in the Suffolk Police Department.
That's great, and I want to take this opportunity not to forget. I want to thank my police officers. I want to thank the men and women of this department that come to work every single day, have to put a vest on, have to put a gun belt on, and go out there, and they don't know what's right around that corner. They don't know what type of job that they're going to face, and this is a very, very difficult and dangerous job. And just ask Brendan Gallagher and Ray Stock, ask Mike LaFauci, who recently was shot out in Coram. This is a job that, because I'm in this position, is why I don't sleep, because the men and women out there, and not just the Suffolk County Police Department, Nassau, NYPD, and every law enforcement official in this country do it, and they do it with a level of courage and bravery. And I want to thank everybody here for the work that they do. So,
Commissioner, what would you say is your biggest challenge as the #1 cop in Suffolk?
There's a lot of different things that are challenging for me every day when I come into work. But the one thing that I have an uphill battle with, and this is not just me, this is Pat Ryder, this is Keyshawn Sewell or Eddie Caban or whatever law enforcement organization you oversee, is how do we get people to trust the law enforcement that is out there doing such a dangerous job, and not taking one incident that might have happened in Minneapolis or Memphis and using that as a way of not trusting your local police department. Going forward, the battle is to get people to understand that law enforcement is not easy, and building trust with our law enforcement officials or police officers is imperative. It's imperative for public safety. And once we build that trust, and everybody can take a look at law enforcement and not necessarily paint us with a broad brush and say that everybody's similar to that cop that made a mistake in another area across the country, we'll be in a better place, being able to protect the families that chose to reside out here in Suffolk County.
This edition of Look Who's Talking. I'm your host, Carol Dioria, and we'll see you next time. And don't forget, we are sponsored by the Colca Group.